for joining us, everybody. We're happy to have you all with us today. And if you have any questions or comments during the presentation, you can just use your chat feature. And please just be sure to select all panelists and attendees in the chat box. That just allows everybody to see your messages. And we will be emailing the recording to all registrants. And now I'd like to introduce our host today, Dr. Mac Adkins. Dr. Mac Adkins is the founder and chief academic officer of SmarterServices. Since 2002, he has led the company as it has grown to serve over 5 million students and 12,000 faculty from over 500 educational institutions. And Dr. Adkins, I will pass it over to you now.
Okay, good morning, and just want to confirm that you guys are still seeing my screen share. Okay, great. So thanks for joining us today. What we'll be doing on the webinar is hearing from 3 organizations and the student services experts at those organizations. They are the University of Arizona, Georgia State University, and Houston Community College. We at SmarterServices strive to be more than just a vendor. We really want to bring additional value and be a partner to our institutions. So one of the things that we do several times across the year is provide webinars on topics of general interest for the higher education community. And so this webinar is one of those. And many of the attendees in this webinar today are our current clients. And so to you, we say hello. Many of you may not be our current clients. And to you, we say welcome. We're glad you're here. If you're not familiar with SmarterServices, we do provide 3 different services. We provide Smarter Proctoring, which is a multimodal proctoring platform management system. What we do is we manage not only the virtual proctoring that you're used to, the fully automated record and review and live virtual proctoring, but Smarter Proctoring is the only proctoring platform that also manages your face-to-face proctoring. So testing centers, proctoring professionals, and instructor as proctor are also available through Smarter Proctoring. We also provide the Smarter Measure Learning Readiness Indicator. It is an assessment that quantifies a student's level of readiness for learning based on non-cognitive indicators. You may think of that as grit or soft skills. Since 2002, over 5.6 million students have taken that assessment from almost 1,000 institutions. And we also provide Smarter ID, which is learner authentication. It extends that learner authentication from beyond just a proctored exam to back in the course to make sure that the student who's getting the grade is the student who did the work. And so we do that learner authentication through keystroke recognition, facial recognition, and or geolocation. So enough about us. Now let's talk about you and the questions that you're asking. Over this last year, it's been a tremendous year of transition for all of us. There's been much discussion about this new normal. And so the big question we've all been talking about is, how do we provide student services in this new virtual normal, right? And so this word art here kind of encapsulates many of those topics. And so many of these topics have been medical in nature, as we've talked about. How do we provide mental health services to students and do that through telehealth? Some of our topics have been social in nature, such as the reality of the digital divide. Some of those topics have been technical in nature, as we were chatting about before the webinar began, that there are multiple platforms that our students have been expected to master, ranging from Zoom to Google Hangouts to Microsoft Teams. So all of that brings about confusion. It all brings about topics that we've talked about. So we at SmarterServices wanted to provide a webinar to bring some clarity to all of that confusion. As we were preparing for that webinar, we learned about the NASPA Innovation Awards, which NASPA had done that very thing. They looked at 100 institutions and their descriptions of their virtual student services program, and they selected 10 of those institutions who were exemplary in providing that. And we were really thrilled when we recognized that 3 of those 10 institutions were our current clients. And so we asked them to share their good practices across not only our network of clients, but to a larger audience as well. So that's what we're here for today. Might state that in addition to the recognition they received through that they actually received an award. There was a total of $255,000 that was in a pool that was split across those 10 institutions. So to you guys, congratulations on work well done, and congratulations on that award. So for the sake of time, I'm not going to make you struggle hearing me, or not make you hear me struggling pronouncing all of the speakers' names, but here they are. And so without further ado, we will hear from them, and we'll go first with the University of Arizona.
Thanks so much, Mac. We appreciate the opportunity to share. So I'm Carmen Chan. I'm the Director of Online Student Success with the University of Arizona Online, our fully online campus within the University of Arizona. And I also have colleagues that are joining us as well, if they want to briefly introduce themselves.
Sure, my name is Christine Salveson. I'm the Assistant Vice Provost for Student Success and Retention Innovation, and also the Executive Director of the Strategy Team. That's one of the departments under that unit that works on campus-wide retention and degree completion initiatives.
And my name is Candace Jones, and I am the Project Manager for the Student Success and Retention Innovation Department at the University of Arizona.
So let's start by telling you a little bit more about the University of Arizona. Go ahead, Mac. So we are a public land-grant Research One institution that was founded over almost 150 years ago and is headquartered here in Tucson, Arizona, in southern Arizona. We also have branch campuses throughout the state, 10 distance campus locations that are spread throughout central and southern Arizona, as well as a variety of our micro-campus global locations that are located all across the world. And so online and hybrid learning has been part of the University of Arizona for some time now, particularly through our branch campus locations. However, our fully online Arizona Online Campus was launched in fall of 2015. And so we've been around for coming on 6 years now. And so as we think about the shift to remote learning for the entire campus community, it was really helpful that we had some experience and chops in the online space before this pandemic occurred. So with that said, one of the ways that we approach this, particularly within the University of Arizona online campus, is by really trying to help humanize the experience for our online students and helping to do that in a way that is as efficient as possible for our staffing resources in our institution. And so we really utilize both a high tech and high touch combination approach to helping to support our students. And so from the high tech side of things, we really focus on being able to utilize proactive nudges and intentional communication to our students, utilizing a proactive advising model where we're intervening and helping to anticipate where challenges occur before they happen or perhaps while they're occurring for our students based off of data that we can see about how they're performing in their courses or based off of what we know their traits were when they first arrived to our campus. And then we also pair that, though, with a high touch approach with our advising community. And so our academic advisors or student academic success specialists have a reduced caseload ratio for our fully online campus students and really utilize a coaching intensive model to advising, helping to, again, meet students where they're at, support them through their journey, which, you know, for our post-traditional student population who we predominantly serve in Arizona Online, it's really critical to be able to tailor our approach to their needs. And then last but certainly not least, it's been really critical for us to help provide opportunities for students to connect with each other through virtual communities. We have a really amazing Facebook group that's a private space for our online students to connect together with each other, help to support each other, answer each other's questions, and where our staff is heavily involved in guiding and supporting them in that space and making that a really organic and friendly community for them all. So when we get our students within the University of Arizona Online, when they first arrive at our doorstep, really, it's important that we're helping to set them up for success from day one, and before they've actually begun their courses, before they're actually, the rubber hits the road in their academic journey with us. And so one of the ways that we do that with our fully online students is by utilizing a course space that we've developed and refined over the years called Arizona Online Launchpad. And this is a space that's built within our learning management system. We use D2L at the U of A. And this space is really meant to be kind of a dynamic virtual student hub for our students to help, again, anticipate some of the common questions or concerns or barriers that students might experience in a very user-friendly way. So you can see a screenshot here of kind of the homepage from that course, rather than having to dive into what is often a very linear and deep amount of content that can live in an LMS. We wanted to really start right up front with these buttons on the homepage that are very clear about what the content kind of themes are for the students, so that if a student is up at 2 a.m. trying to find that financial aid information, they're not having to haunt around all of the university websites, but they can come to Launchpad and find the information that's relevant for them right at their fingertips. And this is a resource that is provided for our newly admitted students, but it actually lives with them throughout their journey as an Arizona online student. And so we also have resources that, are looking throughout the life cycle of our students, not just, at the entry point. So it kind of bridges across those two spaces. And so having that really robust course shell and that kind of onboarding experience developed for our fully online campus students was really critical as the pandemic happened and as the entire campus community had to shift into online learning. And so as the pandemic forced that shift for our larger campus community, we partnered with colleagues across a variety of areas of our institution to create sister versions of this course that were built off of the kind of backbone of the Launchpad that we developed for our fully online students, but was able to be tailored for students either on our main campus who, again, were being forced into online learning that wasn't what they originally signed up for, but where we knew that there was likely to be some learning curve and challenges, and we wanted to, again, provide that resource that was at their fingertips. But we also have iterations of this for students in our global campuses, as well as a version of this for our graduate student population, again, regardless of their campus, but trying to, again, compile those resources into a one-stop shop that is able to really capture together some of the university resources at their fingertips.
Hi, everyone. And so when we applied for the NASPA award, we actually applied on behalf of the SSRI department at the University of Arizona. And so I'm going to briefly talk through what is the SSRI department, what are our various units, and what are some of the virtual services, broadly speaking, that we're offering right now virtually. So SSRI is the Student Success and Retention Innovation Department at the University of Arizona that supports the academic and non-academic success of students. We are comprised of 9 units across the campus that support students holistically. Some of our services include academic tutoring, supplemental instruction, individualized mentoring and programming opportunities, particularly for marginalized student groups, including low-income students, first-generation college students, and also providing guidance on academic and career pathways. And as Carmen mentioned, what we're really trying to do is meet students where they are and try to create virtual communities for our students as we transitioned online. And all of these students' services are offered by our staff of student success experts throughout the SSRI department, and also through our critical collaboration with our campus partners. And prior to COVID-19, we were 100% face-to-face, a traditional modality, and we have been able to successfully completely transition online to 100%. And in terms of our units and services, again, I'm just going to briefly go over these for the sake of time, and then my colleague, Dr. Salveson, is going to highlight 3 of our virtual services in more detail. And so, as Carmen mentioned, we have academic advising that is housed in our department. We have the A Center, which supports students who are undeclared, as well as pre-professional students. And virtually, they offer the Meet Your Major Fair, which is an event that is typically housed on campus in person. And so we were able to utilize Zoom and YouTube to offer this program where students were able to learn more about their major and minor opportunities and hear from advisors. The Advising Resource Center also offers the Wayfinders program, which was, again, traditionally on campus in person. And this helps students understand what the resources are on campus, how they can be successful. And both the A Center and the Advising Resource Center are now currently offering virtual drop-in opportunities. So that's been crucial for our students, especially as they navigate the online space. And then we have the ASIM Scholars Program, which is the Arizona Science, Engineering, Mathematics Scholars Program. This supports marginalized students as they major in STEM. And they provide peer mentoring opportunities for students, and again, create that sense of community for students in STEM. And then we have the CATS Academics. This is the unit where we support student athletes on campus. And like many of our other units, they offer through learning specialists and academic tutors, tutoring, peer mentorship. But CATS Academics actually did something new as a result of the pandemic. They started a virtual book club. What they found is our student athletes did not feel as if they were part of the UA community. They were feeling isolated, struggling with their mental health. And so the directors in CATS Academics decided to create this virtual community for students. So they have the virtual book club where they talk about just building community with one another and also discuss social justice issues and topics around inclusion. And so it's actually been so successful that the students want to have it once we go back to face-to-face. So that's going to be one of the services that we decide to keep after going back on campus. And then we have the SALT Center, that is the Strategic Alternative Learning Technique Center. It is where we support students with learning differences. And we do that through our learning specialists, academic tutoring. So that is 100% online right now. We have the strategy team. They support the entire SSRI department. And again, my colleague, Dr. Salveson, is going to talk about 3 services that we offer virtually right now that has been absolutely crucial in our support of students online as we transition to the online modality. Then we have Think Tank, that is our learning center on campus. It's where we offer academic tutoring, supplemental instruction, and house the writing center. And so we've been working really closely with faculty to actually increase our services through Think Tank, especially involving the S4S program, which is the Schedule for Success first year retention program, where students are housed or placed in pre-curriculum math courses. That's been crucial to supporting our success at the University of Arizona, as well as, again, working with faculty members to increase our courses offered through the supplemental instruction program. And then we have the Thrive Center. This is where we support all students, but particularly focus on historically marginalized students such as low income, first generation students, students of color. And they are hosting various events such as First CATS Wednesdays, which is our program where we support students who are the first in their family to attend college. They just create a community for these students where they can virtually come together and speak with their peers, work with their peer mentors, talk with staff about their mental health and about various resources that are available to them on campus. And one of the signature programs that we offer through the Thrive Center that we actually wrote about in our proposal is the New Start program. It's our summer bridge program that targets first year students coming into the university who are low income or first in their families to attend college. And typically this includes a residence life experience for our students on campus, and they also have access to a mentorship as well as taking courses prior to starting in the fall. And unfortunately, with COVID, we were not able to offer the residence hall experience for these students, but we still created a virtual community for them. And actually, we utilized the funding that would have otherwise gone to the resident hall experience and actually supported students with their technology needs by buying them laptops, helping them get reliable internet as well. And then we have finally the Transfer Student Center where we support students as they transition to the university. And we've done this by offering various events through Zoom to, again, create that virtual community for our students.
Thanks, Candace. And just to add to some of what Candace has already shared, our team provides direct service, but also works on the environmental challenges on campus, any potential barriers to retention and degree completion. So a lot of the work that we do, of course, comes with collaboration with campus-wide partners. Some of those projects or initiatives include predictive analytics and research on campus to forecast future enrollment and retention. Based on historical data, we are working on evaluating registration campaigns and how retention will be impacted by COVID-19 with students not registered potentially this spring or looking to register for fall. We've led some academic eligibility policy changes and implementation, working through Trellis Progress to provide students with early feedback, as well as coordinating a lot of our communication efforts around growth mindset and sense of belonging campaigns, including a gratitude project, belonging campaigns, and Walkout Welcome. And we also provide a yearly student success conference that's open to all campus. And So I just wanted to add to a little bit of that. I know we're almost out of time. Some of the, it's not just that we are offering direct services, but we also, or that we're the only, area on campus that provides these direct services. But, it's very important for us to be able to connect students, right, with what they need and what's necessary, or even just like raise issues and address student needs as they come up. And so we've done that through a variety of resources, including changing up our website to create a student resources page that makes sense to all of the needs that the students have right now, sort of point in time. We, as Carmen mentioned, have worked off of the Arizona Online version of Launchpad to create something that is available to all students on main campus, including transfer students, and also providing a COVID version of Launchpad. If we can move on to the next slide, just to, in the interest of time. And so this is what the Arizona Launchpad looks like. It's resources were created to help students transition to the universities. So some of the topics include how to be a successful student, the importance of asking for help, how to manage university services, and of course, why is Tucson a great place to live, right? So through these resources, through this Launchpad, so far this year, it's been accessed more than 10,000 times by 5,000 different students. And then moving on to the next slide quickly, you'll see the COVID version of Launchpad, which is more focused on managing online formats and connecting students with departments virtually. And we've had almost 13,000 students log in to explore these resources. And so there's a lot of point in time communication. Our team works collaboratively across campus just to make sure that we are on top of what our students' needs are and how we can come together to quickly create a solution or an initiative that will address those needs. Thank you.
Hey, very well. Thank you for sharing all of those. Lots of practical as well as very helpful services that you've transitioned virtually there. So thank you. Now we'll move over to our colleagues at Georgia State University.
Well, thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here with you today. I'm Michael Sansevero. I'm the Interim Vice President for Student Engagement and Dean of Students at Georgia State University. And a little bit about Georgia State. So we are in Metro Atlanta area school. We have a main downtown campus, which is our baccalaureate graduate programs. And then we also have 5 additional campuses around the metropolitan area that offer associate degrees. We are a minority serving institution, Research One institution, and we've got, in addition to our 54,000 students across our 6 campuses, we also have 5,000 students living on our downtown Atlanta campus. And like many of you, I'm sure, when we all got the news with very little advance notice in March that, by the way, we're going to be going virtual, we had to make a lot of tough decisions. And so one of the things we did was, we brushed up on Maslow's hierarchy of needs and decided it was time to bring that out because we actually had gotten the official word on March 11th that as of Friday at 5 p.m. on Friday, March 13th, we would have to physically close all of our campuses. And given the student body that we serve, so many of them have food insecurities. We have food pantries on every campus. We have a number of students who face housing insecurities and are homeless at any given time. And so we really needed to think about how are we going to meet the needs of our most vulnerable students at a time when the services that are so heavily embedded in our in-person experiences will now no longer be available. And so again, we wanted to look at how do we create some immediate systems that focus on the holistic student support experience, but focusing on what's most important first. And so one of the things that we did working with our advancement team is we very quickly created a financial hardship and emergency assistance program. The advancement and foundation launched a crowdfunding source so we could get a quick infusion of private monies. Of course, back in March, we didn't know what assistance may or may not be available from other sources like the CARES Act. So we wanted to quickly find a way to get an infusion of as much private funds as we could so that we could meet the needs of all of our students very quickly. And then working with a number of campus partners, we put together an online one-stop shop application. One of the pieces of feedback we had heard from students was that, especially across a large university, there are so many incredible resources and so many things available to our students, but sometimes it's really challenging to find those resources and to navigate the manner in which you can attain those resources. And so we wanted to make sure that while we were doing this quick pivot for the pandemic, that we created something that was as user-friendly as possible on the student, and that we then on the back end would connect all the dots. And so we wanted to also find a technology that we had easy access to, that we could create something literally overnight. And so the Dean of Students Office had the Maxient system for our conduct database and our student of concern database, where we do all of our case management tracking. So we created this financial hardship and emergency assistance portal through that software. And then we were able to have the data fed into Salesforce, so our Student Financial Management Center could immediately get access to all of the information. And then we also worked with counseling and other critical services across the campus, so that the students would complete one application. They would indicate all the various needs they have, and then behind the scenes, we would auto route that data to the various campus partners, and we would then find the right type of resources to fit their unique individual needs. We also have a very large international population, and so we had to talk about how we were going to serve that population. And so being able to find the right source and funding. On the last slide, actually, there's a few more things I'm going to point out on the last slide, Mac. Thank you. We also simultaneously, with our financial hardship and emergency assistance, launched our Be Well campaign. We were already working on it, but it wasn't fully up and running. But because we knew that we were not going to be able to do in-person counseling, we wanted to shift to have an immediate 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week counseling, virtual counseling available to our students. And so we got that launched in time for that 5 p.m. Friday deadline. We also used our existing relationship with EAB to expand our Navigate app, so that we could take our existing academic advising and support services and make those fully virtual. And within 2 semesters, we were able to have over 65,000 virtual advising appointments, all managed through our Navigate app. And then the last kind of element, the fourth element of our holistic model, was what we call Panther Connect. We are the Panthers, and so we wanted a model that linked to our mascot. But we use Campus Labs Engage, as a lot of schools do, for our co-curricular management and to manage our 600+ student organizations. But we wanted to make sure that we were using a more invitational approach to engagement. And so instead of it just being kind of a passive resource where students would have to go to the portal and connect to what their interests were, we decided to turn the model around. And so linking into our data through the admissions side from Slate, we were feeding all of the co-curricular engagement experiences from high school based on the students' applications. We were linking that to their desired majors and meta majors. And then to make it more manageable, the same way it can be overwhelming for students looking at 100+ majors to figure out where they should start. So we have the 9 academic meta majors. We took the 600+ student organizations, and then we clustered them into these Panther Connect links, so that we automatically, through Campus Labs and through what we call our Panther Involvement Network, we immediately got students pre-enrolled through the orientation experience into co-curricular spaces that simultaneously connected with their academic spaces, so that way they felt this sense of being connected even though they wouldn't physically be on campus as we were welcoming in the new students to the university. So a few lessons learned, because we did certainly learn a lot, and more than we have time to probably go into, but I thought it was worth highlighting a few key things that I think many of us probably faced. The first was trying to figure out, how do we best harness the technology we have? We have a lot of different technologies, and we are very lucky at Georgia State that we had already had many great technological systems in place, our chatbot. We also have D2L as our learning management system. And so we were able to look at, how do we use some tools in creative ways? And so, for example, the Maxient usage of our conduct database, that was not something that vendor had ever seen used before in that way. And the way that we've been able to connect and maximize some of our technologies. We also tried to use very data-driven approaches. And so instead of just presuming what we think students would need, we really did try to look at what did the data tell us, and how did the data inform our needs across the different campuses. Also customizing certain experiences to different populations. because with this tremendous diversity of our university, we needed to make sure that we weren't trying to take a one-size-fits-all approach. Collaboration, of course, was key. We structurally had reorganized ourselves in the last couple of years to have a huge new division of student success, which includes the units that traditionally are part of student affairs, enrollment management, and academic support services, all into one comprehensive division. And through that division, we immediately, when we learned of the shift to this virtual space, all of the key leaders from every single unit across that division started having a daily briefing call. And on that call, we would dig into the details of what's the problem of the day and what's going to be the solution. And every day we left that meeting with firm solutions in hand, so we knew what had to be achieved before we met again the next day. And then the communication piece, figuring out how best to communicate with our students. Chatbot technology was incredibly helpful for reaching the students in this virtual space. And then I think, the other lesson that we all are continuing to learn, the pivot, evolve, pivot, and repeat. There were many things that we did in those first few weeks of the pandemic that worked incredibly well, and some things that just didn't quite hit the mark. And so with the emergency assistance program, for instance, we found out quickly that as we had certain break periods and certain systems weren't online, we had to find some creative solutions. So for instance, during the breaks when, let's say, our student accounts office is closed, we had already created emergency food insecurity grants where within 24 hours, we could get funding to our students so they could have food when they had a food insecurity. But during the breaks, when the accounting systems weren't all working, we didn't have the same mechanism. So we partnered with our foundation and with Kroger to create e-gift certificates. And then we created a 24-hour support network. So for instance, this last Christmas Day, we got a call Christmas morning from a student who hadn't eaten in 3 days. And we were able that same day to not only find a Kroger that had available hours, but get them an e-certificate with a $100 credit so that they could have food for Christmas Day. And that was the level of service we wanted to commit to providing to our students during these challenging times. So with that, thank you so much. Georgia State, it's all about the students, like I'm sure it is for all of you, and look forward to any questions, thoughts, and anything I can ever do to be of assistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for sharing that, and really important information there, because our organizations are so important to our students, not just for education, but for their physical and very personal needs. And it's great to hear how you guys were able to respond to that. So thank you very much. Now let's move on to our colleagues at Houston Community College.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Mac, and to members of Innovative Educators for extending the invitation to have us join you today. Co-presenting with me today is Dr. Rima Adil. She's the Dean of Students at our Northwest College. My name is Shantae Grays. I'm the Vice Chancellor of Student Services for our district, and where we are in Houston, and we serve over 600 square miles of Houston residents and Houston proper and the greater Houston area. Next slide, Mac, please. So HCC, I'm sorry, if you can go back to the prior slide. So we are a singularly accredited institution, but we do have 7 colleges. That means we have 7 presidents and 7 administrative leadership teams at each of those locations with over 22 campuses. We have 15 centers of excellence, which are focused on workforce training and development programs. And each year we serve over 100,000 students, including academic, workforce, adult education, and continuing education students. We also like to tout that we have the highest enrollment for international students among community colleges and most four-year institutions in the country. We attribute that largely to being in a very diverse city, and we know that that's largely been because of word of mouth. So we are extremely proud of the work that we're doing in support of our international students. So like our colleagues, we know that COVID put us in a situation where we had to make some very hard decisions and take some swift action to be responsive to the needs of our students. I will say that as we thought through the process for how we would engage students, it's important to know that our student population is not unlike most community colleges. We're serving students who are largely first generation college students, many who are from marginalized communities, who are underrepresented and underserved, and that when you couple that with a national and global pandemic, along with lack of financial and technical resources, we had to make some adjustments very quickly. We pivoted around the same time that you heard Michael share. In March, it's been almost a year now that we've been remote and working in support of our students, but we had to move all of our student services teams to an online environment. That also meant that we had to prepare our staff to provide support to our students in an online environment. That included training and providing a range of options for how we were going to keep students engaged, but also how we would be immediately responsive to those needs. Many of our students, it's just they're one emergency or one financial crisis away from changing their lives, right? Any barrier that's presented before them could very quickly determine the trajectory in terms of their academic journey. So we recognize the need to be responsive and prompt in our response. And I do want to, I'll yield in just a moment to Dr. Adil, because she'll talk a little bit about the design and the things that we're doing in student services to provide immediate response to our students. We know that many of our students are challenged with the lack of the technical resources needed, but we are delighted to share that many of the best practices that you've heard from both Georgia State and the University of Arizona, likewise, we're doing at Houston Community College. We offer emergency aid in support of our students. We have laptop loaner programs as well as emergency technology grants. These are using the CARES Act and the HERF distribution. We're able to provide financial support to our students so that they can purchase devices as well as Wi-Fi and access internet in their homes. So we're delighted to share with you some of the work that we've done. Again, recognizing that we are also in the same mode as you heard Michael share. We pivot, we'll evaluate our current position, determine how effective it is, and then we'll pivot again. So those are things that we're doing, but I'll yield right now to Dr. Adil and let her speak a little bit more in detail about our virtual lobby that was established district-wide.
Thank you, Dr. Grace. I would like to talk a little bit about our virtual lobby, and we have already talked about the several platforms that we have adopted and we have been using to service our students. So just likewise, this is specific lobby that we created. We use the Zoom technology that was already there. But the design of our student lobby, obviously the need was the access. And a lot of our students, they were just going back and forth. Initially, when the COVID hit, we designed our service request form in the interest that the students can quickly reach out to us. And then we will get back with them. But what it was doing, if we were not live with the students, it was just generating too many emails, too many voice messages, and too many requests through the service request form. There were a lot of duplication. And as a result, we were getting a lot of complaints that the students were not getting timely responses. So we just maximize on this Zoom software that allow us to do breakout rooms. So pretty much what we did is we created our live link and publish it through our virtual lobby link. We created a link on our website and routed all the students to just go to the virtual lobby. And from there, it was just a click away. They would enter in our lobby, and that's where we set up all those individual rooms to include different departments, such as academic advising, counseling and special accommodations, testing, recruitment, student life, career services, business office, admissions. And what I do not have here is we also had international services, financial aid, and veteran affairs. So this almost served as a one-stop shop for us, and that was easily accessible to students that just with a click. So it was easier. It is easier said than done, but the results that we have seen were really good. But what we have done with this specific model, we rolled it out over 3 weeks, and we have about, as Dr. Grace mentioned, 7 colleges, so 7 leaderships to convince, get all deans on board, about over 400 people district-wide to train. So we hosted about 40 plus trainings over 3 weeks and got everyone on board and launched it. So if we can go to the next slide, Meg. Yeah, so pretty much when we came out of it, we have it available for students for over 70 hours per week during the peak registration. That was fall registration. And in that time from our pilot, which was in June, to our peak registration, that was in August. So in about less than 3 months, we went from 160 participants per week to 33,000 participants per week who were utilizing that lobby. And there was one day, I remember it was right before the classes were starting, we have serviced 9,500 students in one day. So that was really showing us that. And one thing that I want to emphasize here is we have not taken any services down. So we continue to provide service through email and phone and contact centers and the service request form. This is something that we have just added in addition to all the services and platforms that we had existed. But the popularity of the virtual lobby with the students for every smallest issue, regardless if it is a student services issue or not, they like to just come in and talk to someone live. So then now finally at this point we have increased ourselves, and we have grew from one department to now 14 different departments participating and using the same platform or similar strategy. And we initially had one college approach, so we launched one lobby and we pooled our efforts. But now we have 5 different lobbies for individual colleges, so we have all adopted. And I'm happy to say that, our student body, that we were receiving a lot of complaints previously, we do not have complaints related to access at this time. Our wait time is almost it's almost immediate. So it's a live service, so there is no wait time. So that is just something that we are really proud of, and I'm going to say that, our students really liked it. Some of our student leaders, they have requested us to, if we can even continue this after we go back to campuses. That is a request that is directly coming from our student leaders. And they're just enjoying and they're loving the how it make the access so easy for them. As Dr. Grace previously mentioned, due to the nature of our institution, our 22 campuses all over the city, and our students, we are singly accredited. So pretty much when the students are taking classes, they're free to take classes at any campus. And a lot of time when the students are coming in late, they're unable to register or find all classes on one campus. So they are registering classes on different campuses, and it creates some problems for them. When it comes to service hours, it makes it so easy. The minute you get out of your work or you pick up your kids from the daycare, you can just click on it and you are right there in the lobby with a live person. One thing that we did to make it more accessible to students, so we also provided the Zoom lobby phone number. So if you are not in front of computer and you want to just dial in, you can dial in, and it will be more like a phone service, but you will find a staff who can attend you and who can listen to your needs. That's about it. Anything else, Dr. Grace, you want to add?
Thank you, Dr. Adil. And I do want to acknowledge that this project and initiative really came from the campus leadership. We had a team of advisors who thought, let's think of a way that we can improve this process and be more responsive to our students. And that work was birthed out of one of the campuses with the support of Dr. Adil. It was a yeoman's task, quite frankly, when you think about the size and scope of this project, but certainly one that has yielded significant results in terms of our enhancements to the student experience at HCC. So thank you.
Very good. So thank you for sharing that information. And what really strikes me is that with the size of your organization, serving over 100,000 students, that you had to provide services that were so scalable. And I think that's really one of the real lessons learned from this whole experience. And it's a good transition into the next panel discussion question that we will have. And last week when I attended the NASPA award ceremony, one example that was given about good practices that emerged during the pandemic that will be keeping going forward also relates to scalability. But one of the schools shared that before the pandemic, they had an on-campus yoga course, but it was physically limited. I think they said to about 30, 35 students because of the size of the room. So during the pandemic, they transitioned that to a virtual yoga course, and now they have hundreds of students participating in their yoga course. So just a great practical example of something that was scalable and also will transition beyond the pandemic. So I'll toss this question out to our panelists to share something that they think was a good practice that was prompted or emerged from the pandemic that will continue going forward.
Well, I'll be happy to jump in, and that example is exactly what we experienced as well. We do a healthy cooking on a budget class that we've done on campus for years, and it's very successful but limited in size. And then we shifted it online, and throughout the pandemic, we ended up having over 200,000 downloads of our healthy cooking classes. So it's just been amazing, the reach. I think the other thing that's been really neat, being a multi-campus institution with both associate level and baccalaureate and graduate, pre-pandemic, there sometimes was a feeling that there were inequities across the campuses, particularly inequitable access to resources. And by shifting so much virtually and having everything that was campus-based and paper-laden shift into these new processes has created opportunity and access for students across a tremendous metropolitan area that didn't exist prior. And that absolutely will continue into the future.
Mac, I'd like to share a couple of things that we've acknowledged now, and really, in hindsight, you wonder, how did we ever manage pre-pandemic without doing these things? So on a weekly basis, we have with our HCC television station, we host what's called Up to the Minute, and we provide weekly updates to students. There's different panelists and speakers from instruction and student services, and even some of our safety and risk management teams who are invited to just share information about any policy changes. It's a way that we keep our students informed on any changes around class instructional delivery modalities, as well as other opportunities to be engaged on campus. What we've seen now is we see a level of increased student engagement. They're much more responsive. They're actively involved in our social media campaigns, and they're responsive, and they're the challenge where we have seen, particularly with our student population, is the seemingly disconnect between students and faculty, where they're feeling a little bit more emboldened now, and they're not as hesitant to connect with their faculty. So recognizing this need for constant communication that allows for two-way communication, in effect, has really been proven to be one of the successful good practices for HCC. Certainly something we will sustain as we think about post-pandemic new normal.
This is Christine with the University of Arizona. I would say that a lot of the point-in-time communication and outreach that we provide now will continue moving forward. I know that with us going 100% online, virtual, remote, through COVID, many more students began to use a lot of our services out of SSRI. And so with our student advisory board providing us feedback on a regular basis, one of the pieces that they provided back to us is that knowing that we may be fully in person this coming fall, they still want to be able to access a lot of what we offer, whether it's advising, tutoring, supplemental instruction, any of the resources that we have currently online or virtual. They want to continue having us offer that. And so we are working as a leadership team now, trying to figure that out and how that transition will look like for fall.
Okay, very good. One of the comments that was made last week at the NASPA awards session was that while much of the conversation is about these fantastic technologies it's about programs that we have to scale all at once. They said really what it all comes down to is people, that these are students who are real people that we're serving, who have real needs. And so in an effort to share how we've humanized our virtual student services, and Michael, you shared a great example of this earlier, but I was just wondering if the other panelists have a story from or about a student who expressed that the virtual support that you provided really made a difference for them.
I'm happy to share, Mac. I think, and probably not unlike most of our peers who are on the call today, the emergency aid and the response to students who are having challenges with technology proved to us, and it was just a telling story about how students learn and how they've come to us despite their financial conditions. So I'm thinking about a story in particular where a faculty member found out that a student was completing their courses primarily through the use of his mobile phone. Had no idea, even pre-pandemic, that the student did not have access to a laptop or even a desktop computer at home. The instructor reached out to our student services and our financial aid team to inquire if there were any resources available for that student. And very quickly, we were able to provide that necessary financial support so that he could purchase the equipment. We had no idea, right, the impact of COVID, not just from a financial perspective, but even from an emotional perspective. The student expressed a level of gratitude that was beyond what we thought would be just a normal, thank you, right? He had suffered hardship, had lost his job, which is why he had returned to HCC for retooling. He was a single dad living with a sibling and his child, and the gesture by the faculty to just provide access to the resources, the basic resources that he needed, were just immeasurable for him. Thinking about the students with putting them first and designing support services around their needs, everything from basic needs to food distributions and emergency aid and accessing technology, to mental health awareness. It has really, this pandemic has made us much more profoundly aware of the inherent challenges that the communities that we serve face as they're coming to us, and the fact that we have to be much more nimble and responsive to those needs. So that's just one of I think many stories that we could share. One example of how the students have really become more open about sharing their concerns and frustrations, and the limitations around their ability to be successful in their educational journey. So I was happy to share that we were able to make a difference, and we'll continue to do that as long as we can.
Yeah, I would just add, with some of that difficulty that we are hearing from students and some of the narratives and pieces of information that we've been able to bring up to faculty and staff, it's been a prime time for these discussions to kind of filter across and through committees, through the faculty, through the staff, on how to continue improving, right? How to continue creating an accessible environment for our students. And sometimes I feel like it takes a crisis, something very similar to this to happen for all of us to sort of have that level of awareness and really try to find sort of some practical solutions across the board for our students. So I do feel like there have been many challenges, but also many opportunities to come out of this.
Very good, I do agree. So as we have 7 minutes left, we'll toss out our third panel discussion question. And the topic of academic continuity is so important. And obviously this pandemic has been a global phenomenon. But so many times there are things that force our organizations to respond. We here in the Southeast deal with hurricanes almost annually. That may make us close our campus for a few days. Other parts of the country could have wildfires, earthquakes, choose your poison. There's something that can cause all of our schools to close. As we say here in the South, bless their hearts, but our colleagues in Houston have really suffered along with many persons there in the Texas area with the ice storm that hit them recently. And so if you thought the pandemic was bad, in addition to that, they lost electricity, they lost water, all their utilities for a period of days, and lots of students were struggling. as a result of that. So certainly academic continuity and being able to provide our services as best we can is something that we've all learned much more about, and I think we're all better positioned now as organizations to respond to. So knowing that in the future, while we're all hopeful this pandemic is over soon, being able to provide academic continuity is not going to go away. It's something our schools will have to do. So with that thought in mind, knowing what you know now, what will you do differently the next time if your school has to transition to virtual student services, either for a brief period of time or a longer period of time?
So go ahead, Carmen.
So for Arizona Online, we obviously work with students that are not necessarily in our location where our main campus is in Southern Arizona. But as this pandemic has played out, interestingly, even though we worked with a virtual student audience, we had a team that was based physically on our main campus by and large. And as the pandemic has played out and we've shifted into remote work across our team, we've really embraced that this is going to continue to be something that our team would like to engage in, and having folks spread across different parts of the country allows us to be able to expand when we can help to support and serve students at different times of the day and different time zones, which has been really helpful. But we've also had some challenges with that shift to remote work, as I'm sure many of the attendees have as well, especially when it comes to being able to follow up with students via telephone without having the landline phones that were attached to our physical offices, and not wanting our staff to have to use their personal devices and rely on those other tools to be able to follow up with students. And so I think that's been one of our pain points in the shift to remote work and to having remote team members, and where we've solved those problems by being able to leverage other internet-based connectivity tools to help support them and to be able to provide that high level of service. But it was one of the pain points that I think we kind of navigated through as this became a longer term situation for our team members and as we plan for the future.
Yeah, like Carmen, I think what I would, because we are indeed, in fact, in an extended period of time, right? We had no idea. We planned to return to campus at least, 30 days after a spring break, and that has now evolved to 365. But what I would say is it's really staff readiness, because and mental and emotional intelligence and preparation for our staff. This is a very different work environment for them. And understanding the implications of being a homeschool teacher now, having small children in some cases that they still have to navigate, and then also learning the new platforms that we are now expecting them to deliver service to our students is important. So one of the things that we would focus on is really the mental health and wellness of our staff, and thinking about how we can be much more intentional with our design to support students that has as little impact and disruption to the students or to the staff members' home life. We want to try to create some work-life balance for them and be very intentional about that, but also find ways to keep our team members engaged and enthusiastic. It's very easy to lose sight of what's important when you're working through what's called the mundane. You walk from the bedroom to the kitchen to your workspace, and then you repeat. And then there's no chance for social engagement and social connection. So that's certainly something we're thinking about as we think about the long-term effects and plan for supporting our students in a remote environment.
Yeah, those are very good comments. And it's not only our students that are affected, but it's also our faculty and our staff. It's a holistic issue for our organization. So thank you all for sharing your good practices today. So many things here that are practical and relevant to so many of us. So in the slide deck that you all will receive, actually you have received already, but we'll resend it to you tomorrow, is this slide with contact information from our presenters. I'm sure if there's something they've said today that you have a question or you'd like to know more about, that in the spirit of collegiality, they would be glad to engage with you and continue that dialogue. Also, you'll receive this link to our satisfaction survey. Let us know how we did today. Was this a helpful topic? What are some other helpful topics you'd like to have addressed in the future? So to our panelists again, I say congratulations for recognition of the hard work that you guys have done in learning and pivoting and changing and all the different iterations of that process that have gone on over this past year. We congratulate you and we thank you for your time, and to all of you, have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.